Submerged enigma off the coast of Japan, a real anomaly that has sparked one of the most fascinating debates in modern archaeology. Welcome to this explainer on the Yonaguni Monument. It's a topic that perfectly blends ancient history, intense geology, and deep-sea exploration, and it really challenges our fundamental understanding of human civilization.
I mean, you really have to ask yourself, when you see these incredibly striking underwater formations with their perfectly perpendicular walls and sharp steps, what exactly are we dealing with here? Are these the actual remnants of an advanced, ancient human civilization that was violently swallowed up by the ocean, or is this just the greatest geological optical illusion on the planet? It's a question that's absolutely divided experts for decades.
To get a sense of what we're talking about, picture what divers actually find resting silently about 25 meters deep in the East China Sea. It's this massive rectangular formation, and the scale of this thing is just mind-blowing. It stretches 150 meters long and 40 meters wide, rising roughly 27 meters straight up from the seafloor. Made of sandstone and mudstone that dates back 20 million years, it has a flat, terrace-like top that sits just 5 meters below the ocean's surface.
So how did we even find this? Well, let's trace it back to 1986. A local diver named Ki Hachiro Aratek was swimming in the waters off Yonaguni Island, basically just hunting for good spots to observe hammerhead sharks. And completely by accident, because honestly, who expects to find a sunken city while looking for sharks, he stumbled right onto this towering structure. It looked so weirdly symmetrical and totally out of place on the ocean floor that it instantly kicked off decades of intense academic scrutiny. By 1992, the University of the Ryukyus had begun detailed scientific surveys, and by 1997, major dive expeditions were officially launched to try and solve the mystery.
Now, the really crucial thing about this monument is that it inherently forces people to pick a side. The evidence is just so compellingly ambiguous that it's created a legendary academic showdown. On one side, we've got marine geologist Dr. Masaoki Kimura from the University of the Ryukyus, who firmly argues this is an artificial structure built by human hands. And on the opposing side, geologist Dr. Robert Schuck of Boston University argues just as passionately that this is strictly the result of natural tectonic erosion. Let's take a closer look at what both of these camps are actually seeing down there.
Dr. Kimura believes the Yonaguni Monument is an astonishingly old 10,000-year-old remnant of Mu. Now, if you haven't heard of it, Mu is a mythical lost continent in the Pacific, a legend that feels a whole lot like the story of Atlantis. According to the myth, a massive cataclysm, like a super earthquake or a brutal typhoon, which, let's face it, Japan is definitely prone to, drove this entire landmass beneath the sea. Kimura theorizes that the survivors scattered and actually helped seed other ancient civilizations. And while mainstream academics view Mu as complete folklore, Kimura has spent years gathering physical evidence to back up his passionate claim that this specific structure was absolutely handled by humans.
So what exactly is this evidence? Well, take a look at the main terrace. Divers found these very distinct 20 to 30 centimeter deep trenches. To Kimura and his supporters, this doesn't look natural at all. It looks uncannily like a highly functional drainage canal carved directly into the rock. The trench crosses what looks like a road at its lowest point, functioning perfectly to drain water at a calculated rate. He backs this up by pointing out these really distinctive scars along the edges of the stone. If you look closely, you can clearly see wedge-shaped indentations. Kimura identifies these as ancient tool marks, specifically from a wedge-shaped putting tool known anciently as a kusabi, used to quarry and cut the massive stone blocks. He argues, pretty convincingly, that nature simply doesn't fracture rock with such evenly spaced, deliberate repetition. Let's move to the next piece of the puzzle and see how this argument builds. It's not just the shape of the monument itself. Researchers recovering samples from the sea bottom actually found what they identify as ancient stone tools. There's a stone adze that remarkably resembles known terrestrial farming tools found in Taiwan, dating back thousands of years. And even more astonishing is a pallet-shaped piece of black shale with deliberate cross-shaped and V-shaped carvings. It essentially looks like a plus sign or the Roman numeral 10 right alongside two drilled holes. It is incredibly hard to look at that kind of human-like geometry and just write it off as a mere coincidence. On top of that, there are boulders resting on the seafloor that seemingly depict giant animal reliefs. For instance, there's a massive 60-kilogram rock composed of fine sandstone that strongly resembles a four-legged animal, possibly a wild boar or a cow. For Kimura, the clear outline of this shape cannot just be explained away by natural erosion. He sees it as a piece of ancient rock art. And it adds to a growing list of features that includes a stone structure reminiscent of the Easter Island Moai faces and a star-shaped platform resembling a turtle. Section 2. The Power of Nature. The Geological Counterargument.
Okay, so just as you might be fully convinced that we're looking at the sunken ruins of a lost city, we really need to pivot. Enter Dr. Robert Shuck and the equally compelling, widely accepted case for Mother Nature. Shuck points to the incredible geological forces constantly at work in this specific location. First off, Japan sits squarely on the highly volatile Ring of Fire. The Yonaguni Monument itself is made of 20-million-year-old layered sandstone and mudstone. Shuck argues that frequent earthquakes in this region naturally shear this specific type of rock along what geologists call parallel bedding planes. This jointing naturally creates those blocky, rectangular, and symmetrical formations. Add to that the extremely strong ocean currents in the area, which continuously sweep away the loose debris and literally erode the site into these striking 90-degree angles.
But you're probably wondering, what about those animal statues, the faces, and the deliberate carvings? Well, Shuck suggests we are simply victims of pareidolia. This is that super common psychological phenomenon where our brains, which are completely hardwired to find meaning and recognize patterns, naturally see familiar shapes or faces in totally random natural occurrences. You know, just like finding a shape in a passing cloud or seeing a face burned into a piece of toast. He argues that those so-called tools and carvings are either naturally eroded rocks or just modern debris that is settled in the area over time.
You can actually see Shuck's point perfectly when you look at the natural structure of the rock and how gravity plays a role. The rock beds here have a natural 10 to 12 degree tilt leaning toward the southeast. Over thousands of years, as wave action and tidal currents battered the rock, those layers naturally pulled apart. Helped along by gravity, huge blocks of sandstone simply slipped downward, cleanly breaking off and leaving behind flat terraces and perfectly perpendicular walls. The result? Something that looks uncannily like giant stairs built by a civilization, but is actually just physics doing its thing.
So we have two wildly different explanations here. But there is a number that both sides actually have to grapple with. 10,000. Whether it was built by humans or just sculpted by nature, carbon dating of stalactites found in nearby submerged caves suggests this massive structure hasn't been completely above water for about 10,000 years. That puts it right around the end of the last ice age. Just to put that immense timeline into perspective for a second, if humans built it, they did it roughly 5,000 years before the Great Pyramids of Giza were even a thought. That's back when traditional archaeology says our ancestors were strictly hunter-gatherers.
And you know, this leads us to a third, totally fascinating hybrid idea that might just give us the best of both worlds. What if the answer isn't entirely one or the other? What if this is a magnificent natural formation, fractured into geometric steps by earthquakes that ancient Ice Age humans simply discovered? It's really not a stretch to think ancient people would be in absolute awe of this massive natural geometry. They may have used it, worshipped at it, and even slightly enhanced it with their own stone tools. They could have effectively terraformed a natural geological wonder into a sacred site or a functional quarry long before the rising seas finally swallowed it up.
Because there's no solid academic consensus, the site currently lacks official cultural protection from the Japanese government. And honestly, that is absolutely great news for curious explorers. It means that the Yonaguni Monument remains completely open to the public. I mean, think about it. Anyone with scuba certification and a genuine sense of adventure can freely dive down into the deep blue and play detective for themselves.
So, after going through the evidence in this explainer, the straight-edge steps, the mysterious wedge-shaped marks, the stone tablets, all juxtaposed with the powerful, undeniable forces of tectonic geology and natural erosion, I'm going to leave it to you. If you dove to the bottom of the East China Sea today, swimming through those silent, massive stone corridors, what do you think you would see? The forgotten remnants of a lost civilization, or Mother Nature's absolute greatest underwater sculpture?